Welcome to April the 11th session of Lunch and Learn. My name is Tom Hunt with the Arkansas HVACR Association. And as always, we have Tony Woodard, who's the Chief Inspector for this mechanical program here in the state. Good noon, Tony.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, sir. How are we doing, Tony?
We're busy. How are you, Tom?
Well, Tony, we're back into the 2021 Mechanical Code, kind of referring to it as the second look, meaning that we had two parts of the mechanical code that we needed to talk about, this being part number 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have a change in this. The roof hatch, if you don't have a permanent ladder on the access as you egress and ingress into the building from the exterior, but if you go inside, you have your permanent ladder, you have a hatch that you open. You'll notice the sides, the right and left side, and then there'll be a gate in the front. We have to guardrail these from backfalling in. An individual fell back in, which prompted a change. So we do have to have guardrails on the sides of the actual hatch access now.
Well, now this is a picture of the ladder that's a permanently built ladder going up through that access.
Yes, sir. Yep, that's the guard change. That's the International Mechanical Code that references the change.
Okay. Here's where you were talking about having guardrails.
Guardrail supposed to be at 40. You're supposed to come at 42 inches. Supposed to be 42 inches in height, 21 inches dead in the middle. You'll have another rail, and you're actually supposed to go every 21 inches and have a vertical rail up and down, and then this gate will swing out. Now this picture has been stretched by, it was phone, it's been stretched, which makes that look a little shorter than it really is.
But I notice here that in the code it says that if you're by a parapet there, you've got to be at least 30 inches above the parapet.
Right, and that's really 42, right? So
if you look at that one, that's a little short parapet.
A little short.
Not close, are they?
Yes, sir. And if they'll pay close attention to that access is kind of, you're coming up, the ladder is on the backside by the hatch, and you're having to step back over your opening there. So this one got flipped around just a little bit, but corrections can be made and things like that happen. But it was a work in progress.
You know, Tony, it's so easy to get things backwards when you're working and you're sweating and you're not thinking. Here's an I love this one.
And the pounds per square inch on that seemed to fell away when the when the gate swung, the rail fell over. So, or it didn't fall all the way over, but that's supposed to have a 200 pounds per square inch pressure, angled legs back to support that. Because if the guard fails, you go with it. We need to make it a little stouter than that.
You can. Okay, I'll move on. Here's one that's interesting, and I love the picture that goes along with it.
Yes, this one is interesting. And believe it or not, this is engineered, done, and met the code of today. When we go to the new code, because this is a 512 or steeper pitch roof, 412 and down, we're okay. But when we get where you have trouble standing, then you have to build the permanent catwalk access. And there's the guardrail we're talking about at the 21-inch sphere, up and down and horizontal. And then the next picture will show where the roof hatch is actually right there. So as the hatch opens back towards the roof edge, which it is more than 10 foot away, picture's kind of deceiving, but the top side and that right side would have a guard, and then he'd have the gate, and he would open it and step onto the catwalk.
I guess when I think about this, Tony, I see all the expense that's involved there in building that catwalk and the area around it. And think about a good old boy who's been doing mainly residential, and all of a sudden he gets a chance to do something like this, and he doesn't even think about having to have all this expense.
Yes, sir. And this is a very good point, where this is where we highly recommend you get an engineered stamp drawing and build it to those specifications. That's a good point, Tom. Really
There's
is.
no telling how much money that costs to build, and if it wasn't part of your price, oh my goodness, you're in a mess.
That's right. And you notice that cuts out, because that has to be maintenance to where that hinges back for serviceability, replacing the fan motors and all that. So you just can't, there's a little design with this. You can't just go up there and start welding, angle in place.
Here's the permanent ladder.
permanent ladder on the outside. It has the extension of the 42 inches up above, but it didn't reach earth or grade. And you can drive by and see a few of these that are up in the air, 3 or 4 foot or whatever. Those will extend to the grade. They solved their problem by pouring added concrete, but they had to get their concrete large enough to have their 30 by 30 landing platform. So, but the permanent ladder will touch some type of grade, solid grade. Has to go all the way down. Yes, sir. This was a church, and they came back and they decided to do it that way instead of extend it down. But hey, that's solid. Now,
that 3/4 inch diameter rung, that's a pretty good sized piece of steel.
That is. That's a pretty good step to get back up there. You'll notice it's almost 2 of them big blocks high. Pretty good step to get up there.
That will accommodate a big old boy, won't it?
All right. The fuel burning appliances. Boy, I'm really hoping that we can get the water departments to get on board with this. I know out in the county and through EduCode, after we were at ICC, they have come up to a solution to the washer in new construction. Now we're talking about new construction. We can solve the Cat 3 furnace and the water, freezing up and busting and running ceilings and come down into that top plate and drop down and come right into the top of that washer box. They come up with a Y off your standoff piece, and it comes over, stops, and it allows for a 1-inch air gap. I think we have a picture that they built me one, but this is not exactly to code. The Splyhouse guys were just trying to help us out and build it. But what you need to pay attention where your Y comes up, if you look at your red valve where your water is, they make a 2 of these with an inlet. What you would have is where your pipe would drop in above that hot water line, and then this would go straight into it. It wouldn't wipe and go off into a DWV, drain, waste, and vent. You can't go up above the ceiling and drop into the deal. You got to bring it down into the living structure. And if I can get one of those pictures, maybe we can bring it up at one of the next Lunch and Learns. This is not quite to code.
They're looking for a open air vent there, aren't they?
Open air gap. So if you were looking down, you'd see this. If this was a wall going all the way up, then your 3/4 inch pipe would be coming down over there by the red valve, your hot water. And then this Y would be right there, and then it would come into it. And this is trapped. So you've got that. And the washing machine box, the washer seems to keep the water into most. So we're not worried about drying out a trap, anything like that. And then we're just going to drop the wintertime condensate. And we stress that. The wintertime condensate at 10 degrees in your attic, so we can get it to a location to keep it from freezing up. This can be regulated new construction. Our issue is a lot of the water departments, they don't want it going into their water thing, but I'll keep we'll move on.
We'll talk about that in another section.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Fire code.
Okay, the fire code. We are adopting, we had the ruling, they had their public hearing the 31st. It went through, it's going to BLR. It should go to legislation to be approved on May the 20th. Major Williams discussed this with me over the weekend. It will be enforced January 1 now due to the fact that they are named Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Arkansas Building Code, Arkansas Residential Code. ICC said they don't have time to have those printed. The earliest people will be able to order them will be November. So we've extended the start date to January just for the printing reason.
Yeah, that helps us since our code is the 2021 International Mechanical Code. We don't have to worry about that extra printing, do we?
That does not, but it extends the requirement for the soffits to not have to be enforced to January. Also, the duct blaster test not till January. So it's giving guys a little more time to prepare to start figuring this in their bids to know what they have to do. But they will marry together. The IMC will marry with our fire code and building codes. You will not put anything in the soffit starting January.
So the duct blaster test, if I just heard you correctly, becomes effective January 1.
Yes, sir. We have more time to do more training. And like I said, it's just strictly a print issue, and they won't have them available for folks to even have their code book. So we've extended the deadline.
Well, there's so many
or start line, excuse me.
Yeah, there's so many people involved in these processes that I'm sure people get frustrated in that they, we'll say, in fact, we have said January of 22, and then we said July
Right.
22. Now we're saying January of 23, but that's pretty much a locked in date now, isn't
That's
it?
a locked in date.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Interesting.
Interesting. Okay. This is good to see that code, a lot of folks will get confused when we talk about return area opening locations. In our old code, it's in 918. It got put in chapter 9. I don't know why. Now the language has been cleaned up. It's been added. It's in the front. And you'll notice the exception they added there, especially in multifamily dwellings. This is for your multifamily dwelling, these townhouses, these small footprint deals. If it's all electric, you can actually put your return as close as 5 foot to your stove, not a gas stove, all electric. If it's all electric, your return in that kitchen, one in all area, can be as close as 5 feet.
But if it's gas, it's still 10 feet.
10
right?
foot. Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
big right
That's an
there.
example of it, right?
Right there's an example. I haven't found one that close yet. That one's clearly 10 foot away. You can see where the stove will be. But I know they've got some townhouses in the process that are going to be 6 feet away. So I might get a picture of that. It will meet the new code.
Because it's all electric.
All electric.
Gotcha. This is an interesting one. I think the thing about this one that it is best seen in the next one.
Yes. So that is showing your return. Your actual mechanical floor drain is in the return. Can't be in the return. 10-foot rule away with a trap or trap guard deal, but this is in the return. This can be fixed. I mean, there's cast iron pipe that's ASTM 84E approved. That's plenum rated. We could extend that up, get it above the return area platform and drop our condensate into it. But this one, as the way this is designed, does not meet our requirements. That is a prohibited return source. Right
Big
there.
emphasis on the word not approved, right?
Not approved. It will dry that out. You can trap, it will dry that out in a heartbeat. And then you will be sucking methane gas and distributing it through the building.
Duct insulation.
Duct insulation, the spray foam is starting to get a big move. The only one in emphasis on this is the DAP. That product, that is the only closed cell thermal barrier, ignition barrier. It has a torch deal on it. That's the one that's approved to use the spraying of ductwork. However, there's been several spray companies call me, so they want to spray ductwork. You have to be a licensed heat and air person to insulate ductwork. It's in our law. It might be a silly law, but it is in our law. So the contractors are having to learn and get their registrants employed, and they're the ones that are doing the insulating of the duct with the spray foam applicator. The DAP company has gotten better with this. And what I mean, our problem was the colder temperatures below 68 degrees. Now they've designed their guns with a heater type application. You still need to have your duct. You can't set your duct outside and get it really cold. So a lot of them use a spray booth, just build a spray booth in their shop, and they have the little heater on there, and they can spray a lot of the duct, keep their shop warm enough, and pre-treat duct, and then take it to the job site. And then they carry a little 30-pound or with a little another heater on there for the short joints to do the spray the joints out in the field.
Now this is closed cell, isn't it?
Closed cell. That stuff gets so hard, you can stand up. Then when they do the demonstration, they spray a 12 or 14-inch duct, and this man is doing it is well over 200 pounds. And after 30 minutes to 40 minutes of doing it, he stands up and down on that duct, just open from end to end. That shows you how hard it gets.
You know, one of the things that I'd like to point out here is that when you're doing this in the field, you got to be very, very careful to get the backside of the duct, because that's easy to miss it.
We have some Inspector Pearson down in the south part of the state. Some individuals had to go back and do a lot of work. We got down there in half inches, and Doug and them did their diligence and made a very good inspection and got back there. They had to go back and refoam a lot of it. Sure did.
I had a very similar experience. When I checked behind them, oh my goodness, it was bad. This looks really good here. That must be an inch and a half, 2 inches.
Inch and a half's a minimum per DAP. That's correct.
All right, here's an example of it being installed.
Yes, sir. And they like I said, in the field or in the shop, they'll leave that 2.5 inches at the top and the bottom. And then they make their joint, screw it together. Excellent place to put your strap. And then they just come back and zip around that with their little hand fill bottle and spray that. The
Okay.
problem with that, it does kind of get all over the place, and some cleanup down underneath this isn't bad, but in some wood areas where you're laying good wood flooring, it takes a little cleanup because that stuff sprays and gets down there, and best thing, get it cleaned up pretty quick.
So what we're seeing right here is that's kind of like the metal and then the strap, and they're going to be insulating over the top of this.
Yeah, that's where your two metals joint, your rib piece.
Okay.
When you crimp that down, your crimp in slides inside. That's where they screw it together, and then there's the strap. Correct.
I understand.
Yep, these guys did a good job. You can see on this one right above the unit, which was a short run, that was field done. You can see it kind of spray all over, and it ain't as consistent as the joints that he does in the shop, but he clearly got his 2 inches, 1.5 inches minimum he got on there.
Doesn't have to be pretty. It just needs to be effective, right?
Effective, correct. Residential garages, we've moved into one of the changes in the 2018 Arkansas Fuel Gas Code. And there's one, you will not take your combustion dilution air from the garage anymore. It will go all the way to a communicating attic or crawl space that's ventilated very well, such as that. You can see the 2 pipes. He's going to bring another one down low. He's got one for high, and he'll bring one all the way down. What they do up Northwest Arkansas, they build a lot of these garages at the end of the garage there. They put a little mechanical room. A lot of them are just putting a water heater in there. And they were like to cut a grill up above that header.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, cutting it in and trying to drive their combustion dilution air that way. And it was legal up until the January of this year when we went to the new fuel code, and it will have to go outside. Now, if that little corner is on the out, if what little part of the wall is on the outside, they can still put that grill to the outside. It cannot face in towards the garage. Have to communicate directly with the outside wall. And we backed up on this. The maximum length on our actual the flex connector was 3 feet on any fixed appliances. When they had RTUs on the roof or fixed furnaces, 3 foot was it. You can use a 6-footer now. So the 6 foot can go in, and they need to run it the best professional way. It doesn't need to be turned into a roller coaster up and down and around and sideways, but you can extend it up to 6 feet now.
Now, I'm on a job site and I've got a 3-foot connector. In fact, I've got a couple of them. And it turns out that I'm like 4 feet away. Notice that last sentence you've got there.
Only one, that is correct. And it might be a 1-year-old gas flex connector. You are to replace your gas. You change out a new one, you do not use an old gas flex connector. It's a one-timer. It is replaced. And
you can't use 2 3s to get 6.
No, you cannot. And if you tear the tag off that gas connector, you just yank that, you just runt that flex connector. Leave the tag on there. There's one right there. You're seeing they kind of went out. Now it's kind of out in the walkway there was my reason for the picture. You know, he could have come up and over, but it's legal. It's just a little more, could have been professionally ran better, I believe. I don't know the language I'm trying to use here, but that is legal. That's a 6-footer. Just in the walkway there, you don't want to hit that in with your leg. You might want to, could have turned it up, went around in a different angle, but it is legal, a 6-foot.
But the tag's still on it.
Tag's still on it. That's a good one. Okay. We've always seen this. In fact, Lindsay Moore just graced our presence. He's in the room here, and he can speak for facts about old folks that used to run their type B flue vent in your return area. We actually have the language now. It's in the language there. It tells you do not put your B vent, your type, any PVC vent, any flue vent, period. Water heater, furnace, whatever the appliance, shall not pass through a plenum, return supply either. So we have the language in the fuel code now.
Okay, so Lindsay's in the room now, huh?
Yes, sir. He's keeping us straight.
How you doing, Tom?
Fine. Lindsay is, I can't keep up with these titles, but he's over the Department of Labor and Licensing and in our program for the HVACR program, and has done more good for our program than anybody else that we've ever had working with us.
He saved the program.
That's exactly right. Anyway, Lindsay, don't let it go to your head. You know, we'll be fussing tomorrow. if you've got any
real
questions-
quick, I do want to address something.
Yes, sir.
I need all the contractors, and I mean them to listen up. This Act 90 has created administrative, just the deal is, the Act 90 is, we're short with employees. If there is a felon that is wanting to work for your company and you're willing to hire them, all of the state inspectors are going around. We're going to hit the ground running this week and bring these waivers. If you are to register that person, the way the law was set up, you could fill out your registration, send your $25 check in, and they could start work, even though they might not get their license for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If you are going to hire one of these individuals, you shall send a separate application and a separate check. Do not, if you have 2 registrants, do not put both of them on one check. It will stop the entire process, have to be mailed back. These individuals cannot go to work until they've been vetted through our department or through the board. It's a law legislative put on us, and we're doing our very best to comply, but it's time consuming. We are going around and explaining, so I want the contractors to independently put a registration form with that check for those individuals, and then just register the others as accordingly. And do not send any more than 4 applicants on one check and one deal. And I just needed to hit on that real quick, Tom.
Well, that brings up a subject that we need to talk about. I hear lots of complaints about people not being able to get their license renewed. What do they need to do?
We are doing our due diligence. We're just like you said, Lindsay's wearing 12 hats. The gals are too. I mean, they are all doing their very best. I know I've witnessed Amanda do one of these checks. We're talking an 8 to 10 minute time frame per license to go through. It does go to other agencies. And when we get things that slow the track down, and we're getting several in, we're trying to achieve so many a day. And it's just, I'll give the administrative work, get this done. And sometimes they don't have time to answer the phone. And it is the truth. That number we have right there is a recorded number. We are doing our best. We just ask for patience. That's all I can say at this point.
It's easier and quicker sometimes for you to give us an email rather than a voicemail. We can get back to you quicker. Of course, all the renewals, you can do those online now electronically, and that is what helps expedite the process of getting everyone's license renewed. But now, everyone has to remember, if your license comes due on the 1st, like all licenses generally do, if you wait till the 30th to mail it in, you're going to incur late fees, because you've got to have a reasonable cutoff date to get these licenses into us. And so some checks are getting sent back now because they're having to incur the late fee. That's just the statute law, the way it works. There's a cutoff date. And sending it in the morning of the due date or the morning of the expiration date, you're going to get your check returned. That is just the facts of it. To touch on what Tony said, I want to make sure everyone understands, especially with the registrants, your first time license or registrants that they've acknowledged on that form they've been convicted of a felony. Once they acknowledge that on that form, then that kicks in a whole separate administrative process, and it can take 30 to 45 days. Now, we have worked on ways maybe to expedite these applications quicker, because we know that the AC company, HVAC companies want these guys in the field, and we want to get them out there as quickly as possible. This is just a new law legislature has passed, and we want to be able to work with the mechanical companies as best we can to expedite these things. If they'll separate that application out from all the other new registrants they're hiring, that will help them greatly. It'll help us help them a lot as well.
Let me give you a success story that I was just about to do there. And that is, I had some complaints from some folks who were having problems getting their license renewed, and I didn't understand what they were saying. And finally, Tony, they talked to you, and you said, well, why don't you register online? And they were thrilled, because they're accustomed to doing that for, I guess, fishing and hunting license anyway. So he went online and was able to register almost immediately, and he was absolutely thrilled to death. And so, if people will stop and think that you can register online, we've had several articles in the news magazine about registering online. And so do your best to try to register online. You'll get your renewal very quickly and you'll be a happy camper. Tony, thanks so much for your time today and for Lindsay stepping in and kind of helping us out there. If you've got any questions or comments, call 501-682-9201. That's 682-9201. And again, we're grossly understaffed. When I say we, I'm talking about our industry is grossly understaffed at the labor and licensing HVACR program. And I say our, I mean that because it's a partnership. It's not them against us or us against them. It's all of us trying to work together. So we look forward to seeing you next time on May the 9th. That's a Monday, second Monday of the month, and look forward to all of you being able to make it for that particular meeting. Thanks for joining in. See you next time.